Former Governor Peter Obi of Anambra State has never been afraid to air his views on national issues, ranging from the economy to the democratization of the political space. He will now be joining us to speak on the crisis that has befallen the People's Democratic Party at the national level and in his home state, among other issues of national importance. Good morning, Mr. Obi, and welcome to the morning show. It's good to have you again on the program.
Thank you, Ruben.
Well,
thank you. Good morning. Thank you very much.
The introduction.
For inviting me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Well, the introduction already says it all. In your state, Anambra, PDP seems to be in disarray, more or less, if I can use that expression. And then at the national level, there's also a leadership crisis with about almost half or more than half of the members of the National Working Committee more or less passing a vote of no confidence in the chairman of the party. And all of this, some people have said, may not be a good hint for the party in terms of the party's preparation for 2023. What do you think is the way forward? What will you advise the gladiators involved in this matter to do, both at the state and the national level? Let
me start with the national level. At the national level, I think it's not right to say that half of the members of the NWC have passed vote of no confidence on the chairman.
It looks like it.
No, it's not. It doesn't look like it. That is wrong, and that is not the position. The position that there's some issues which is normal in a large party like that and everything. And I can tell you that the stakeholders are already intervening, and I'm sure it will soon be amicably be resolved for the interest of the party and for the interest of Nigeria, because Nigeria need that party at this moment. So everything is being resolved amicably. On the state, yes, there's some legal issues also going through the courts. I won't make a lot of comments, but I can tell you that the process of our primary and the process up to date are within the rules, if I may say. We had a peaceful primary, which, of course, was done as a result of the court-ordered position and everything. And it's also a case in court and it's going on very well and will be resolved in due time.
Well, I guess Nigerians would like to see a stable leading opposition party puts itself in order.
Completely.
But what do you think the problem is here? Is it individuals trying to perpetuate themselves over party interest or clash of egos? And I ask because the PDP seems to have an infamous record of very rancorous chairmanship tenures. Some would say, apart from perhaps the founding chairman, Solomon La, they have always been contentious tenures of chairmanships. If they're not fighting with the president, they're fighting with the NWC, or they're dealing with mass defection. So what exactly is the PDP dealing with here?
Well, I don't think it's peculiar to PDP. You can look at even the party in power. Mm-hmm. There's always issues in this type of big family and in our own politics in general. Because as you know, our politics is still transactional, so you have individuals trying to have their ways and things like that and everything. But overall, I can tell you, it will be resolved amicably.
I hope that happens. Rufai.
Yes,
will be resolved amicably. A lot of people will say that was what they thought, only to see this happen. That some factions of the party are saying, we don't want him. We don't want Uche Secondus. We want him out of this. Are you giving me the assurance that probably resolving this issue amicably might be Uche Secondus staying till December when they'll have the convention? Is that going to be the case? Or resolving it amicably for you will be a caretaker committee coming in? Because when you say amicably can be looked at in many different scenarios. So what's this scenario of amicability here?
I think that should be the case.
What should be the case?
I can tell you that will be the case. I'm sure it will be resolved where we have a peaceful leadership till the convention, because that's what it is. But like I said, for me, I definitely think it will be resolved amicably, you know, because the stakeholders, the most important organ of the party, the BOT, then the Governors Forum, and all other stakeholders are looking into it. That is, and there's several meetings going on, and I'm sure those meetings will not be in vain. This will be resolved for the interest of the party and interest of Nigeria.
Well, looks like you are trying to evade getting into the details of the crisis in the PDP.
Not at all, because I know what's going on. If you know what is going on as an insider, that's why I'm making this comment. I know what is going on as an insider.
Okay, before you joined us this morning, one of the things we discussed is the front page story in This Day, where the newspaper is now talking about who will lead Nigeria. And this is in the context of the statement made on this station last Friday by former head of state, General Ibrahim Babangida, when he said, in his view, the next president of Nigeria should be somebody who understands economics, who is a bridge builder with friends all over the country, and who is within the range of 60 years, not anybody above the age of 70. And some people have commented that, oh, you fit the criteria. What are your thoughts on this? And what are your plans for 2023? Are you planning to run? And if so, what do you have for us as Nigerians? Or what are you proposing?
Ruben, this morning, somebody called me and was talking to me about various defections within the parties and everything and all that, and mentioned what he said. You know, we tend to preoccupy ourselves with what I consider a bit of irrelevance. This country is going through a very difficult time. Ruben, as we speak, we have over several thousands of schools closed in the north. In Kaduna alone, they say about 5,000 schools. So if you look at all the north, it could be about 7 or more thousands of schools shut down at a critical time when your country is already the country with the highest number of out-of-school children. If you just multiply average primary school, to the best of my knowledge when I was in office, is at between 250 and 500. So if you take 7,000 schools at an average of 500, that's another 3.5 million. So you're looking at 18 to 20 million people out of school. And nobody's talking about how do we get these people into school at a stage when the biggest and the most important oil of tomorrow is education. Our children are out of school. That's, for me, is more important than we should preoccupy ourselves with what is happening today. Our unemployment is hitting the roof. Nigerians have combined unemployment and unemployment of over 50%. So we shouldn't be talking about who is defecting, who is going to be there in 2023. Yes, it's a discussion, but it should not be the priority now. The priority now is how do we wake up every day and look up and say, hey, how do we get our children back to school? Because if we don't, Ruben, going in the future, the situation will be a mess.
But being out of government, I mean, it's not for you to worry. It's for the people who are in government to worry about what to do about those issues.
Ruben, it's every Nigeria to worry.
I know, but I mean, as commentators, as advisors. But I was asking you a personal question. What are your political plans for the future?
I've said it over and over again. For me now, I'm preoccupied by how do we get this vehicle called Nigeria to be sure that it still has the engine and moving before we talk about the new driver.
So you're not saying you would not be interested or you will not be running, you will not be throwing your hat in the ring. That's not what you're saying. Yes. You're just saying, let's focus on the now. However, when the time comes,
like
perhaps I would run.
If the engine is not working, What is the driver going to do? Is he going to carry the vehicle in his head?
No, but we're looking for a good driver
That will help.
who can help.
When that time comes, for now, let's talk about how to fix what is the problem. I wake up every morning, the first thing I read is what is happening across the country. Is our children are still being kept in captivity. We still have people, one banditry or the other all over the place. Just like I said, somebody asked me about defection this man. I said, okay, somebody like governor of Zamfara has defected to APC. Has that lessened or helped the banditry in Zamfara? No.
But when you consider that these same challenges have remained unabated, it's still the same manifestos political parties and politicians come up with every election cycle. Doesn't that point to the fact that perhaps the drivers are the problem, and we should focus more on the drivers, not just when we have the elections, but ahead of the elections?
I agree with you. It's a very simple thing. Our leadership, the problem of Nigeria is leadership. That is clearly, everybody knows. I've said it that what we are going through today is cumulative effect of leadership failure over the years. However, it is for Nigerians to start the process you said, to ensure that the process of leadership selection this time is well organized and that they be able to scrutinize all those who are availing themselves for the leadership. It's very simple. Where is this person yesterday? What did he do there? It's not I've seen people now flaunt paper qualification or ability to speak Queen's English and everything. All those things, educational qualifications, what we have in Nigeria is not just leadership issue, it's integrity issue. We've had people who are sophisticated, well-educated, knows what, but they're thieves. So, educational qualification is not a measure of integrity. Ability to speak good Queen's English is not a measure of integrity. So we should look for people who have the capacity, people who have integrity, and of course, have a knowledge of what the problem is all about. So they can tackle it and be firm to tackle it. So we need to look, where was Ruben yesterday? What did he do? How did he handle it? And everything. Look at their records.
Well, Rufai.
All right. Mr. Peter B., I take it that you're playing reverse psychology. And I take it that, you come here, we've had the joy to interview you many times, and you give solutions to the problem. I think you're not just here to give solutions. You're here because you're interested and you're a party to this. So I take it that you will run at some point, but you're keeping it close to your chest by trying to decipher what you're doing now. Because if I ask you a next question, now you're going to give solutions to the problem of Nigeria. Those solutions shouldn't just come free. They're because you're interested in the game, but you're keeping your options to yourself. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that. So I take it that you will be running anytime soon for presidency. So let's talk about the solutions. How do you think we could have done the issue of PIB better with this allocation given to host communities?
Well, let me tell you, Rufai, I was surprised when I see the argument going on with the issue of 3% or 5% of host communities. I don't think any of you have visited those host communities. I've had privilege of visiting them. And I feel very, very pained that Nigeria, as a nation, have treated those host communities the way they treated them. And I think their demand for 5% is just. And should not have been the issue of contention at all. What are we talking? Here we have a diminishing assets. We have been enjoying several years. And now that it's coming to an end, we should be actually devoted to making sure that those host communities get a benefit of it and be able to put them in order for the future. So for me, the PIB issue, and I plead with the government, please give the host communities the 5%. It's not going to make any difference. Oil today we know is a diminishing asset that won't be there tomorrow. The future assets is education. So let us equip and support those host communities to be able to compete in the future. So that's my own contribution when it comes to issue of PIB.
Okay, but let me go back to this same issue about leadership and the driver.
Agree.
Yes, the governors of the southern states, 17 of them, they met, I think, twice, and on both occasions, they resolved that the next president of Nigeria must come from the southern part of Nigeria. What's your view on that?
Well, it's for he said the governors, these are the leaders of today, in terms of they are the governors forum, and then, of course, the parties. This decision will be done within the parties. It is no question of my view or anybody's view. It is the view of the party, because even if I say, oh, let it come to the south, if the party zones it to the north, we're not going to walk away from there. If they zone it to the south, it depends where they zone it. Because these are major parties. They have a lot of stakeholders who will sit down in a round table. Politics is, for me, is something you sit down in a round table and discuss. And I agree with each other. It's not something where Peter can say, this is my preference. That is not politics. Otherwise, it becomes another dictatorship. We have to sit down, discuss it, and have a convincing argument why it should be here or here or here or here. But resolve it amicably, where every section of Nigeria feels a sense of belonging.
In other words, you are saying you are not committed to the Igbo aspiration, for example, to produce a president of Southeast extraction in 2023.
We need to convince the other people why it should be us. And you know, we have a very convincing argument for that, to support that. But it needs to be convinced. It's not, we're not going to hold a gun in their head and say, you must come here. No, it is to be, a politics about engagement. It's about consultation. It is not about confrontation. It's about consultation. You consult and discuss with other people and say, this is how we need to do it. This is how we want to have a peaceful coexistence.
Can I ask you two questions?
Yes.
First, do you think you have the solutions to Nigeria's problems?
You know, Nigerian problem is very simple. I always say it's very simple. It's the issue of leadership. If you have a leadership that is visionary, focused, and understands what the problem is, it will be solved. So
do you think you have
no, it's without having I can suggest mine. There's so many other people who have the solution.
Okay.
It's a very simple thing. We talk about issues today. What is Nigeria most important? We talk about, let me just take where we are today. We have issues like issue of security, issue of law and order, issue of trying to stop all forms of impunity. People will say, yes, for me, it's economy. But when you can't talk about the economy without talking about security, law and order, and removal of all forms of impunity, why is this important? The greatest contributor to your economy and GDP is the intangible assets, which I've just mentioned. If you talk about, say, America, 70% of American GDP contribution is actually the intangible assets. Security, law and order, of course, what I said, removal of all sorts of impunity, which you see today. Then you deal with the economy itself. It's not a sophisticated thing. All we need is to move our economy from consumption to production.
Okay.
And that is very simple. It's not a rocket science.
Well,
and then stop corruption. Corruption, again, is easy to fight.
And that goes my second question, corruption, because we had an exclusive interview with General Ibrahim Babangida last week, and he talked about corruption, comparing it to corruption under the military regime and under democratic governance. He says, under the military, compared to what it is today, there were saints. Do you agree with him? But let's go on a quick break. Former Governor Peter Obi. We'll come back to discuss more about corruption and other stories. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Thank you so much for staying with us on the Morning Show here on the Rise News. We still have with us in the studios former Governor Peter Obi of Anambra State. And of course, we've been discussing some of the issues on the front burner here in Nigeria. To keep it simple and short, is Nigeria more corrupt under democratic governance, as former General IBB said?
I agree 100% with him. Far more corrupt. If there's anything that has had a consistent growth, probably competing with world levels in Nigeria, is corruption. And the case is very simple. He mentioned the issue of, I just watched a clip where he said a governor was removed because of 313,000 naira, which as at that time, at the rate, even official rate of 17 naira, but let me use even the black market rate, you're looking at $15,000 compared with what is happening today. As I had a meeting with General Ikenwachukwu, and he told me that as a military governor, his security vote is about 45,000 naira, and he has to account for that to the chief of general staff. So you could see and everything. You can't compare with what is happening today. The governors didn't even receive 10% of what we received as governors. So definitely corruption, and of course, like you know, corruption is one of the killer, what I can say, the biggest negatively impacting situation in our country today. Because corruption kills entrepreneurship. Nobody thinks in a corrupt country. It kills professionalism. Look at where we are now. Professors are in university being owed when thugs, bandits are being paid. It kills hard work. So in a corrupt country, it's difficult for anything to work.
Rufai.
All right. Thank you so much, Adesua. Still on this matter of leadership and presidency, what are your greatest fears about Nigeria?
About Nigeria?
Yeah. What are those fears, your greatest fears you have for the country?
Well, I still have the same thing about leadership, is that we need to have people with capacity in leadership, competent people, people with integrity, people who focus on the job of ensuring that they do the right things for Nigeria.
So, if we need those people and you have shown that you can bring that competence and capacity, why are you denying Nigerians of your competence?
No, it's not about me, it's about a team. You know, you see, when it comes to governance, it's about being, okay, yes, the driver has to be somebody who is very competent. We need a good driver, but he needs also to need some core people that work with him.
Well, we'd like to take your comments on two contentious pieces of legislation. The first has to do with the electoral bill, the proposed amendment of the electoral law, and this controversy over whether electronic results should be transmitted electronically or not. And then the second, major contention has to do with the attempt to also put in place a media bill that will control broadcasting, control how the press operates. What do you think?
Well, you know, on the electoral bill, I was very surprised and very sad to hear that we cannot transmit the result electronically. Ruben, we spent billions of naira trying to ensure that registration is done electronically, to ensure that we move from the what you can call yesterday to today, and suddenly in the conclusion, which is transmitting the result, you said it can't be. The same thing goes with what you're talking about media. You can't talk about democracy. You can't talk about today without talking about freedom of speech. You can't, you can't even imagine it. And this is what I was talking when I was talking about the intangible assets of creating a country, of saying a country that works. It's about intangible assets. That is what is more important. And that includes what we are talking, having a free and fair election, having an election that people will see, believe is free and fair, transmitting it in the most, what I call recent, this is done in small countries. It shouldn't even be discussed. I even thought it was given that if such a thing, if INEC, who has been saying every day we can do it, that if it comes up, everybody should, it should be passed immediately. The issue of media bill shouldn't even be discussed. Ruben, you can't discuss that today. In the world of today. No. These are things you need to do in order to be able to show the world that you're ready for the future and attract those needed investments that we need to do.
Let's talk about something you're passionate about, the economy. Nigeria is said to have lost 132.8 billion naira due to Twitter ban. First, can I ask you if you're still tweeting? And, secondly, do you wonder where these policy actions are coming from and what drives them?
That's why, I'm not tweeting again because of all this. No, but whenever things like this happen, you feel very sad. Not just that we lost 132 billion, which is about approximately $250 million. The impact, the loss is far beyond this. Twitter has become what you can call a means of economic and social development. Denying it or restricting it, you can imagine the impact on the people. As you speak, this year Nigeria is receiving the lowest investment in telecom and ICT. This is the future. And investment is going down in that sector. The future of the world today is in ICT, knowledge. And Nigeria is receiving the least investment in it. In a situation, so this is where you need to create jobs, the jobs of tomorrow. This is where you need to, it has become means of education and everything, and you're not receiving investment in that direction. That shows there's something wrong. With all this, like I said, the intangible assets you're going to do to attract investors are not there. Because you could see, these are what I call impunity. You can't just get up and say, I don't want this person. I don't want, that is not the world of today. The world of today is that in this type of thing, you negotiate, you talk to people, you listen to people.
Okay,
well,
sir.
Yeah.
Real quickly, I'd like your take on the refineries. The amount being spent, the federal government invested in private refineries and all of that gamut.
Refine is unfortunate and what I call irresponsible. The refiners have become a waste pipe. If you think it's a good business, it's a very simple thing. Let us conceive it as a business. Do not borrow money using government to do it. Let's go to the capital market. Let's subject that investment to the capital market in Nigeria. We have a robust capital market where they can borrow the money from, so that that investment can be subjected to scrutiny by the investors, and by so doing, you will even help to increase the volume of the Nigerian capital market. And if it's a good investment, the returns and everything will benefit Nigerians who have invested in it. It will help to deepen the market. The Nigerian capital market today is less than, in value, is less than $40 billion, when the South African capital market is over $1 trillion. So let's subject it to, government should stop borrowing. As a matter of fact, We need to stop borrowing for investment today. Government is not in business. Government should stay there to provide the physical support to allow businesses to thrive. So if the refiners want to function, let them package it and go to the capital market, raise money and run it. It's a profitable venture so that it can work. We need to lessen the control of government in economic matters. We need to push things. Because of this, look at our borrowing this year. All the borrowings this year, even commercial banks and everything, the lending is 70% government, 30% private. That shows the economy is not working.
Well, at this point, Mr. Peter Obi, we need to take a short break, but please stay with us. When we return, the conversation will continue. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the morning show here on the Arise News Channel. Our guest is still former governor of Anambra State, Mr. Peter Obi. Before we went on break, you were talking about borrowing to build or rehabilitate refineries. Some people would even say, okay, this administration has been talking about infrastructure. How about also these rail lines? Are we getting value for money with the railways?
These are a combination of what I'm saying. Those borrowings can be more effectively channeled. Ruben, for example, issue of rail, it should have been a combination of government, private sector involvement, and raising the money through the proper channels where there will be proper scrutiny to ensure that there's a business case for this borrowing. Ruben, today we're using almost 90-something% of our revenue to service debt. If you look at our half year, one place you see a huge jump is debt servicing. In fact, in so-called capital or infrastructure spending, capital expenditure, the only one expenditure line in the federal budget that has not even made up to, that is not 50 or 60%, is in capital expenditure. Every other one, the current is within the budget. Every other one is within the budget, with debt servicing going beyond the budget. Because you're borrowing money and throwing it away. We cannot today, I've said it before, go and look at our borrowing, Ruben. For the past years, we've moved our debt from 30 billion to 100 billion. Our GDP per capita is heading south. That means we're throwing the money away. We're not investing it. So it's time to stop. And you're borrowing not even in your currency, in another person's currency.
Well, let's go back to politics. One of the major political topics in town at the moment is the arrest in the neighboring Republic of Benin, of Sunday Igboho, the Yoruba self-determination activist. And also there is from the southeast the case of Nnamdi Kanu, who is still in custody with the federal government and whose case has been taken to court. What are your thoughts about these two issues, particularly with regard to the quest for self-determination by certain groups in Nigeria?
Well, number one is that I want them to be given fair trial within the laws, local and international laws, of the arrest, the detention, and everything. Two, since we have all those sophistications, we need to apply it to be able to arrest all this banditry all over Nigeria. To be able to deal with it. So let them be given fair, free, and probably visible. I'm keen on watching the trials of both of them as I'm watching the trials of every other person in Nigeria. On the issue of agitation, I've always said it. These are cumulative effects of leadership failure over the years. We need to restructure the country. We need to build an inclusive, accommodating nation, doing the right things among creating jobs, making sure that people are properly engaged. If you have, Ruben, where you have nearly 50-something million people unemployed, you are going to have crisis. You have almost 50% youth unemployment, and your youth are supposed to be almost 60% of your population. So if you take the Nigerian level, it's supposed to be about 120 million, and you have about 50% under and unemployment. So you're talking about almost 60 million. And if your youths are about 60% of this, you're talking about 30 million unemployed youths. It's a crisis. South Africa, with less than maybe 10 million, because if you take that they are only the same percentage, but they are 60 million, so they are 30, and their youth unemployment is just about a quarter of ours. It's already having a problem.
Well, in speaking about corruption earlier, you referred to governors' security votes, comparing it to what was collected under the military regime. And I want us to talk about education, because another thing you're passionate about. How difficult can it be for governors to protect students in schools? On Friday or Thursday last week, we saw an embarrassing situation where, well, pathetic, maybe not embarrassing, but pathetic, where soldiers are now having to escort children to schools somewhere in the north. How difficult is it, you were once a governor, for governors to protect schools and have safer schools in Nigeria?
It's a combination of both. The federal government says they're in charge of security. Mm-hmm. This is time to think about state police, local government police, and then put in more investment, that it will go down to issue of security. It's not a very difficult thing. If you do it properly, I worked as a governor. Mm-hmm. We first had local vigilante in every community, paid by government, directly from the state government, local vigilante. Every community was provided with vehicle, pickup vehicle, brand new, equipped and paid by service and paid by government to help them locally, because they know, every locality knows the bad people among them, and they can handle it better than if you issue an order from Abuja. An issue of education, like I said, is something that we must take very, very seriously. Education is very, very important, because that is the tomorrow, and we cannot afford to miss tomorrow. If we're going to talk about fighting poverty, you can't talk about fighting poverty today if you're not investing in education. The more educated your people are, the better your economy. And that is a critical area we need to deal with, and deal with it very, very fast.
Right, sir. I'd like to ask you this. What will be your top 3 fixes to an economy that has a high level of debts, an increased level of unemployment, an increased level of poverty, and juxtapose that with an economy that is bleeding? Its small businesses are bleeding. Ease of doing business very low. I mean, what will be that recipe? Because on the counter narrative, we're hearing, let's use infrastructure to drive the economy. But a lot of people are arguing that that is not working. So hence the massive loans.
Infrastructure. You can't use infrastructure to drive the economy, especially when the infrastructure is being done in a corrupt manner. That I can tell you. Everywhere in the world, solving economic problem has been through a proper, very articulated, known phase. And that is, number 1, investing in education. 2, is support a combined, properly articulated fiscal and monetary policy directed at supporting your SMEs. I've said this several times here. SMEs drive the economy of every country. And pulling people out of poverty It's not something that is being seen all over the world. It happened in China. In 15 years, everybody knew China put 430-something million people out of poverty. It happened in India. In India, in 5 years, they put 200-something million out of poverty. It happened in Vietnam. And I use the latest country I've been using, Bangladesh. It happened in Bangladesh. Rufai, there's nothing about poverty that is scaring. It's a question of investing money properly. I was in Bangladesh for 1 week. In 1 week. 1 week. I was in Bangladesh for 1 week. I traveled with a former minister in this country. We were in Bangladesh to study what was happening in Bangladesh in 2008. In 2008, the Bangladesh economy was 101 billion GDP. Per capita was $763. And their debt was $50 billion. So their debt was 50% of their GDP in 2008. Today, Bangladesh economy is 300-something billion dollars GDP. The per capita have moved from $763 to 2,000 plus. So 3 times. Their GDP have moved 3 times. Their economy have moved. Their debt have moved to 102 billion. So their debt have actually reduced because instead of being 50% of their GDP, it's now about 30%. What happened? They invested the money. What did Bangladesh do? They took the money to SMEs. Today, Bangladesh is the second biggest exporter of textiles to the world. They are making from textiles. They have over 5,000 textile companies in Bangladesh. They are making over $35 billion from textiles and textile materials and everything, which is towards what we are making from oil. And I can show you other countries that have done the same thing. It's not, you throw money to SMEs, they invested in education. They didn't go building schools and infrastructure. We were driving on mud roads, but they invested in education. Today, Bangladesh have moved from diaspora remittances in Bangladesh now is now almost going towards 30 billion. When our own is diminishing, because they've educated their people like Philippines have done. I can show you an example using Philippines as well. You could see their diaspora remittances going up because the more educated their people are, the more they expect them. If you go to Dubai today, every taxi driver is from Philippines or Pakistan. If you go to UK, everything you see is Philippines, Bangladesh, all these things, because they've educated their people. Their literacy level have gone up. Nigerian literacy level today is below 60, and they're now shutting down your schools. Bangladesh was at the same level as us when I visited. Today, Bangladesh literacy have moved up to almost 90. Philippines is 94. Everybody, Ghana here is gone to 76. Egypt, South Africa is 97. So everybody is moving away from where we are stuck. So pulling people out of poverty, changing the economy is not something everybody. It's very easy. You just have to have a determined leadership that understands the place, that knows the country very well, and knows where to invest. Nigeria today have the resources to be a great nation if only they can go and imagine what it is. Rufai, we are receiving about 22 billion from diaspora remittances, and we have 10 million, about 9 to 10 million Nigerians living outside Nigeria. Imagine if we educate all this population, especially in the north, and we have another 10 million people out of Nigeria remitting more. We've doubled it. We have 50 billion remittance.
Well, we have just about 3 or 4 minutes left on the program, and we need to manage time. Yeah. But I just asked for a clarification because somebody sent a comment from outside, and then I'll ask my question very quickly. This person says, did Peter Obi just say that he's no longer tweeting? He tweeted this morning that he will be on Arise TV by 9 a.m. Tune in Please let him clarify the statement he just made. Could this be a parody account or your exact account? But I wanted to ask you a question.
Ironically, when it comes to these three things, you're managing with some people. So maybe they've just decided, okay, they will do. I'm very stupid. It's not me who is operating all these things the way they are. So you get to a stage, yes, you do it on your own, but quite frankly, when you have these young people working for you, they are revolutionaries. You say to them, don't do this, they just go on doing it.
Okay, I hope that viewer is satisfied with that. But I was going to ask you about women participation in politics. Even today, that front page story in this day, front page, there's only one woman. Identified. Two?
Yeah.
Who is the second person?
Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations.
Okay. Amina Muhammad,
yes.
right?
Yes.
And Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. Just two out of, a sea of male, possibilities. Why is it that we don't always look in the direction of women for the top positions in Nigeria?
I think their participation is very critical. I can tell you, I've worked with women. They are less corrupt. As far as Nigeria is concerned, I have been in the bank where I've seen the bank when I was chairman, the key drivers of the bank, treasurer, were women. And they were fantastic people. As governor, from my chief of staff to everybody, all those who helped me to women, they're more caring. And because they have families, when you talk about the education, they are passionate. When you talk about health, they are passionate. When you talk about supporting small business, they are passionate. They can understand it because they are running families. So we need to involve women more. And you could see, you were in government, Ruben, when Ngozi was begging and crying for us to save money. Look at the mess where we are today. Had we listened to that woman, she was crying and said, we have about $20 billion in SS cruise. Let's put it in sovereign wealth fund. If we had done that, we won't be where we are today. And that comes to what you're saying. And that's when you talk about leadership selection process. These are the things we should look at. Who supported Aganga yesterday when he was talking about sovereign wealth fund? Who supported when we were talking about saving money? Who is against? These are things that people look in other areas in order to say, this is where we're going. And if that is the right thing, let's do it. You don't just say, oh, Ruben was causing trouble yesterday, but today he's speaking fantastic English and everything. Let's repeat him again. No, he will just go there and continue his ways.
Well, I think on that note, we would like to thank you very much for joining us on the morning show. Always a delight to have a conversation with you on national issues.